uh, okay. There, sorry. I love her voice. I wish it was mine. So with ACTRA went to a lot of trouble to put these rules in place. There's a lot of rules to protect your minors. For instance, how long they stay on set, what they can and cannot do, how many meals, how many breaks, and especially tutoring, because we don't want them to stop learning even though they're on a set. And speaking from my experience, my son grew up as an actor, and I was on a children's series for a couple of years. The children, including my son, are incredibly smart because they're getting the same curriculum that your children are getting in school, but they're getting it pretty much one-on-one, or, you know, and that's something that ACTRA really fought for as well, that they continue their learning, and more importantly, they still have their childhood. Even though they're working, they have to be children. So I'm going to let other people introduce themselves that are my support team. You met Alistair. Did you give them your title, Alistair?
Oh, no, I didn't. I'm sorry. So I'm the director of the film, television, and digital media department. I've worked in both theater and in film. So if there are stage parents here, I can help you with that, as well as film side of things. So that's me.
Claire Johnson has been an amazing support for me. I turn to her for almost everything. I get a lot of emails and phone calls from parents who are doing their due diligence, which is really important, and exactly what you're doing by being here. So Claire, can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Christina. So I'm Claire Johnston. I'm the senior advisor to the film, television, digital media department. I've been at ACTRA for almost 20 years now, I realize. And before that, I worked in production and animation production. So, you know, obviously with a lot of animated series, working with child performers at that end. But, you know, that was when I was the big bad. So this is definitely a pleasant change for me. So in my 20 years working at ACTRA, I've been specifically in the film and television department, and you know, working with the collective agreement, working with producers, trying to whip producers into shape to make them understand that, you know, them getting their shot list on a day isn't actually necessarily our number one goal, but it's something that would be an excellent, you know, happy outcome to that not having them breach the law when they're working with children.
Thank you, Claire. Angelica, would you like to introduce yourself?
And I unmuted. Okay. Hi, everyone. So I'm Angelica Alejandro, and I'm one of your ACTRA Toronto counselors and also one of your VPs. My motto has always been to be in service of fellow members, so members for members. My husband, daughter, and I were, well, I mean, she started off as a minor, now she's 19, but we're all ACTRA members. So this rings true really daily for all our lives as performers. And, you know, it's something that we value so much in our family, this union, and how we feel protected and supported. And we know that we can go to people for answers and when we have questions. I'm also one of the facilitators for Respect on Set for new members. And as Alistair mentioned to some of the people that were here earlier, I also go out as an OSLO, which is an acronym for On-Set Liaison Officer. And again, that's being there for members, looking out for members on set. And it's just an honor to share your time with you today. So hi, everyone.
Thanks, Angelica. Is there anyone else I need to introduce?
No, everyone else that is here is here to learn.
Parents. Okay. Yeah. All right. So I guess first and foremost, I should shut my dog up just a.
It's okay. While you do that, here's what I can do. If we can get, I'm going to start with you, Nancy, because you are the first one on my screen. If you want to tell us about your kids and the reason you are here today, please.
Hello, everyone. So I have a son this is going to be his first time ever being on any TV production or acting at all. So he's very, very green. So this is all very new to me. I'm used to union agreements, so I'm not scared about reading any kind of union-based documentation, but I like to hear it out of other people's mouths because sometimes it's easier to understand. So yeah, so that's our story.
Can I ask how old your son is?
He's 12, turning 13. Yeah, going into grade 8.
Excellent. Next on my screen, thank you, Nancy, is Trina in the car, not in Niagara Falls, though, right? You were there for a while, though.
Yes, we were there on the weekend. My name's Trina. My daughter's name is Wasea. This is her first TV series for Ukulele U. Happened really fast. We weren't expecting this opportunity. It kind of just fell in her laps and we're going with it. So she's really excited. Everyone's been great. Lots of information, lots of paperwork. Yeah, we're just excited to see what happens. She did some recordings already and did very well that we're really surprised and just want to support her.
Amazing. That's great. And welcome. I mean, one of the things you talked about paperwork, and it's true, right? This, and the thing about this is this is show business, right? It's not show hobby. This is show business. What you are doing now is an actual business, and your child is now working in a business. So we need to make sure that all of those pieces of paper are actually done and filled out correctly and understood, because it's important, because you are signing legal contracts that you need to understand, or your agent or whomever needs to ensure that they understand, because you don't want to sign away rights to something that you don't quite understand. So it's always good to ask the questions. So thank you for coming today. This is great.
Thank you.
All right. Next on my screen is Arlene. Hello.
Hello, good afternoon.
Afternoon.
So sorry, I joined a little bit later, but thanks for having this session. I have 3 children that are in and out of some work. We really just started with background work. I have one who's now part of the union. And so I thought this would be a really great opportunity to really understand a lot more about the business, understand what I'm about to get into, as they begin to get their eyes opened a little bit wider and recognize that this is something that they like. I think it's just best that I'm really equipped as a parent as I step into this, because clearly we're all balancing a lot of things right now. And like you said, it's not a hobby. The more they get into it, it becomes a business. And I really need to understand how I show up and how my kids show up in this business, and prepare ourselves with knowledge. So that's why I'm here, and looking forward to this session. So thank you.
Excellent. Welcome. And I can't reiterate it enough. This really is just the fact that you've chosen to be here today and try to suck some knowledge out of our brains is super, super important. And we are happy to provide it. Next up on my screen, I have May. Am I pronouncing that right? Please tell me I am. Excellent. Good. All right. So May, if you can unmute and tell us about your child or children and what you're hoping to gain from today.
I'm May. I have 2 kids, 10 and 5, and they're both child actor. Glee is also doing Ukulele U with Wasea. And but we have quite a bit of experience, because Glee has been acting since she was 5. And last year she just finished Art Squad and it's just aired. So we're just so happy. But I like, when there's an opportunity like this, I feel like no matter how much experience you have under your belt, there's always something that you can get update or learn. So that's why I'm here to just listen. So, and Breezy is also shooting next week. So my husband and I have to split up and take her. My husband has to take her to do the Murdoch mystery.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, so we're so super excited, and kind of like just hang in there and learn something new,
Well, congratulations. That's really great. And you actually brought up a really important point in that, by agreeing to have your child do this work, you are agreeing that you're going to be there too, right?
Mhm.
So becomes a full-time commitment for one or both of the parents. So this, it's not something to be entered into lightly, but it can be so incredibly rewarding. It's not for everyone. And it's great if you're able to kind of drop in and drop out. But the other great thing about having you here today, May, is that you can also help support all these other people on screen, because you're probably going to meet Trina, in holding at some point, on a set, and you're going to be able to kind of pass along all the things that you've learned, all those little tricks that you've learned. And that's really what we hope for. We hope that you are all able to share the information amongst yourselves as well. Word of mouth really is one of the most powerful tools on a set. It really, really is. So thank you for coming today. Next on
no
my
problem.
Thank you. Next on my screen, I have Sean Clark.
Hi, it's actually Suzanne Clark. I'm using Sean's computer, so I'm showing up as my son.
Excellent. I'm gonna rename you then, so we get it all correct. All right. So you're using Sean. All right.
So Sean is 17 and has always wanted to act, and has been participating in the Toronto Acting School teen course. And so I'm here to learn. It's all, as many of the parents, Nancy said, it's all very new to me. So here to learn what is involved. And so I can support Sean in his goal to do this. So it's exciting. So I'm here to learn, absorb, take it all in.
Amazing. So, I mean, the really interesting thing for you is with Sean being 17 next year, he's not going to be considered a minor anymore. But at 18, it's still very much what we want is we want the parent or guardian to be as involved as possible, because even though the law says they're not a minor at 18, I think anybody that has anyone that's around that age know that they still don't have all the life experience that we want them to have yet, and all the business savvy. Right. And from the business end of things, that's why it's super important to get involved now and make sure that you keep an eye on things, because it's very easy for things to go astray. So thank you for coming. Oh, great. And next up, Michelle, we heard from you a little bit, but now you get to tell us why you're here, because it's not spam, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yes.
Hi, and just the same as everyone else, I have a 12-year-old daughter who is very interested in acting and has taken classes with Christina. And I know nothing about the industry, so just trying to educate myself and to see what's required of us going forward.
Well, you've chosen a great coach first and foremost, in
Yes,
Christina there.
there.
And not only is she going to teach you all the acting things that your kid needs to know, but she's also going to be able to help you with the business side of things too. And mostly as a stage parent, right? Because as Christina pointed out, she has been through exactly what you are going through. How old was he when he first started, Christina?
Eddie made his first commercial at 3 weeks old.
Yeah, so
and became a full ACTRA member at 6.
Yeah.
It kind of just happened by a fluke. My agent called me and said they need an infant in a commercial. And I said, no way, I'm not putting my kid in this business. I've worked with kids. I've been in the business. She said, well, he'll make this much and all he has to do is sleep in the loving arms of a grandmother. I went, okay. And I put that money immediately in a mutual fund and left it for 18 years. And we can talk about that kind of stuff too.
Yeah, we will definitely get to the money part. Yeah, okay. We will definitely get there. Absolutely. Thank you, Michelle. Next up, I have Wendy. Wendy, are you there? All right, maybe we can. Oh, there we go.
Hi, sorry, I cannot use my camera today.
That's okay.
Yeah, it's my very, very first time to join this meeting. I'm very happy to learn about information. My daughter, her name is Melody Cao. Now she's became a full ACTRA member this year. She did a little bit job in past 2 years, and we missed the opportunity to join the full membership. Now she's working on a movie, and for me, I feel like I have so many information to learn about today. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you. And congratulations on her becoming a full member. That's really great news.
Thank you.
Yeah, next up, I have, oh, sorry, Claire, go
I
ahead.
was just going to ask, how old is Melody, please, Wendy?
She's 16.
16. Okay, great.
Excellent. Next, who do I have? I have Malabre. Did I pronounce that correctly?
I think that's the last name. Is it?
Yep, you did pronounce that correctly.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Excellent.
No, very well. Yeah, I'm here just to listen. I'm en route. We're driving from actually just a session right now, getting ready for a production starting next week with, I think, Ukulele U. And my son, this is his first time ever. He sent out an email a year ago, and today I'm landing to hear about ACTRA.
Excellent.
As he's been fully booked. So he's 11 years old and excited, and we're just here for the journey.
Excellent. Well, welcome. Thank you. Thank you. And drive safely if you're driving.
Yeah, no, and my name is Ed. My wife Karen is driving.
Okay. All right. So Ed. Excellent. Thank you. I'm going to apologize in advance if I get this wrong. Is it Chui King? I think.
Yes.
Was I close?
Yeah, very close.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Can you tell us a little bit about your child or children and the reason you're here today?
This is totally new for me. My child is a dancer. She just had opportunity to be a dancer in a musical film, as a street performer.
Mm-hmm.
The reason I want to educate myself first, and also want to see if she's still not an ACTRA member, so I want to see if she wants to be a full member.
Great. Excellent. Was that 13 the musical? Was that
13 musical? Yes.
Excellent. Great. Very good. We definitely have shows every year that tend to have larger cohorts of minor performers. So Ukulele U and 13 the musical are some of our bigger ones right now. And whenever Disney shows up, anytime Disney shows up in town, we tend to have a lot of children performers involved with them. I think Zombies 3 is filming right now. So there are lots of child performers in that as well. So thank you for coming. Next, I have Allison. Are you there, Allison?
Allison Rocks.
Hi, sorry.
There we go.
Hi, I'm here. Hi,
Hello.
everyone.
Hello.
My name is Allison. My daughter's name is Manoj. I was just kind of here to learn a little bit more how I can get her more involved in ACTRA. Right now, she gets a lot of parts for on yellow vouchers and blue vouchers, but for some reason, she's never able to get the full 15 vouchers to enter ACTRA. So I was just here on the background trying to get some more information. I'm actually a full ACTRA member myself.
Oh, great. Excellent. Very good. Well, hopefully we can provide you with some of that information today.
And how old is your child, Allison?
Sorry, Manoj is 13 years old.
Oh,
13 years.
Excellent. And the reason we're asking, just, we're not being nosy. This is really about us, every age group has different rules that apply to it, specifically in regards to breaks and time in front of the camera. And that's why we want to know this sort of information, because it changes dramatically for a 16-year-old and a 6-year-old, as you can imagine. So that's why we're asking this stuff. So thank you.
And I totally appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Excellent. All right, next I have Jamie. You could unmute there, Jamie. No, I call upon people and then they try to scramble to find the mute button. Where is it? All right, Jamie, if you're not there, Jamie, no, that's all right. Jamie, if you're not there, I'll move forward. So the other person is someone I don't know their name. Your phone number is 647-551-3028. If you could unmute on the person on the phone there, 647-551-3028. There we go.
Hi, this is Vanessa.
Hello, Vanessa.
Hi, I have 4 kids, and 2 do not want to act, but the 2 boys I have, they're twins. They also just finished filming yesterday. and they are dancers as well. They worked also on the 13 the musical. Their love is dance, and they love being on set and filming for dance. I'm just online to learn more about ACTRA. I'm not sure if they do want to continue. They would like to continue in the dancing part, but they are not interested in the acting part.
Fair. No, and that's absolutely fair enough. And I think, you know, the good news about today is a lot of the information that you're going to get is not just about ACTRA. Yes, there is going to be some ACTRA focused information, but a lot of this really is just about how to manage this business, how to manage this as a career. You know, so there will be lots of good takeaways, I think, for everybody, whether or not you choose to be ACTRA, which is why we want this to be open to members, non-members. It doesn't matter to us. What matters to us is ensuring that parents know what they're doing and make sure that their children don't get taken advantage of. That's really the important and the key thing today. So thank you. All right, so I'll try Jamie one last time to see if Jamie is there. Jamie, are you there? All right, well, if you are, we can come back to you. And thank you, Arlene, for typing that into the chat there. Arlene has a 9, 10, and 11-year-old, so that's great. I'm just going to add something into the chat that you should all just maybe, if you can grab it or click on it if you're on a computer now and save it for later. This is the kind of the main landing page for all things child performers on the ACTRA Toronto website. It's super, super important for you to have, just because everything, almost every question you have, we can probably find the answer there. And if not, I want to know about that because I want to be able to add that information. I want to be able to make sure that we do give you all of the resources that you need. All right. And what did we add there, Allison? Okay, so we've got, we have 2. Great. Excellent. So a 13 and a 17-year-old. Thank you. All right. I'm done talking. I'm even going to turn off my camera and I'm going to hand this over to Christina and Claire now to get this party started.
Thank you. And yeah, welcome everyone. I'm really glad you've all come today. So we've got a sort of an agenda to kind of go through and just to kind of touch on some stuff, but please at any point feel free to stick your hand up, ask a question. We invite the questions because your experiences on set educate us in what we need to be doing, how we need to be beefing up the support that we're offering to you when you're offering support to your children to keep them safe and well and happy on set. So that's like the first thing. So I really want that info from you. I hope everyone's had great experiences, but if everyone's had a shockingly bad experience, then we need to know about it so that we can put it right. And just important for you to know that that's part of what we are there to do. Is A, hopefully educate the producers so that they do things right from the get-go, but B, if the wheels do come off the bus, then we're there to help them fix it, re-educate the production crew, and get things done better next time. Anyway, so the ACTRA, who we are and what we do. ACTRA is the union of performers on screen-based, recorded and broadcast media. So film, TV, radio, commercials, video games,
print.
Not print.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So still images are not our purview, although it's sort of, I think that I don't really deal with commercials, but I think there's a bit of a crossover. Sometimes if you do a commercial, you might also be the face of a print ad that goes along with it, but that's part of a negotiation too, that the product would want you in both capacities. The contract you get with ACTRA would only cover the one.
Claire, you just froze.
Oh no.
That's all right. That's all right. I can continue a bit. So Claire was just explaining pretty much who we are and what we do. But you should also know that the rules and regulations for minors that ACTRA has fought so hard to establish are actual bills that have been passed. So even if you are not under the ACTRA umbrella, all these rights still are important to your minor. how do you get started in the business is probably something some of you, although a lot of you sound like you're already really involved in it. You need a representative, you need an agent. ACTRA does provide on our website a list of agents. That does not mean that we endorse any one of those, but we do provide a directory. And I think it's really important to do your due diligence with an agent. It's a relationship, a business relationship. We prefer that we don't insist, but we really recommend that you look at agents that are under the TAMAC or EIC umbrella. Both of those associations, if I can call them that, or coalitions, both of them go by a guide of ethics that ACTRA does endorse. You can look more into that if you look up TAMAC and EIC. So the first thing is the agent. And in order to get an agent, you're going to need a nice picture. I always recommend to my students, don't go spend $1 million on a really glossy picture, because your kid's going to change every couple of years. So, there is. Thank you. Alistair's putting stuff in chat that I'm talking about.
I'll just keep filling the chat windows. Don't
you
worry.
are so beautiful to me. Can't you see? So you want a nice picture. You want your child to look rested, look good, feel good about what they look like. And it's mainly just, kind of the top of the body, the top of the head, and light in their eyes. So outdoor, send in a nice picture. I teach classes. There are so many classes around. I think for me, if you have the money to take a class, I think it's important because it finds out whether your child is comfortable in front of the camera and likes it. Because the thing I always say to my students, they call it play or screenplay for a reason. It should be fun and you should like it. And that's something I also think you should do, is check in with your child all the time. I constantly checked in with my son at every audition. Are you still liking this? Do you like this? Do you want to continue? I've been in the room as a director where a child will come in for an audition screaming and crying, and a parent pushing them in saying, to quote one horrible experience, do you want to go to McDonald's after? That's not a child that wants to work, and that's not a child that people want to work with. So your child's got to really want it. It's a big commitment for the parent, as Alistair said, because you have to be there 24/7. And that means on set, you have the right to be within your child's sight at all times. Now, there are times where your child might be in a small room where they only have the camera and a few people, but there's a monitor always. And you can watch your child always. Don't, stay in the green room or whatever, or in the trailer. You must be there because you have to advocate for your own child. So if you can't be there, I always suggest a tell, is what I call it. Watch your child on screen if they're in a small space and you can't be there, and have a tell. Either they tug their hair or they scratch their brow, and that means they're not comfortable. And then you go in and you make sure that it's resolved, whatever's making them uncomfortable.
So on that, Christina, Nancy's actually asked a great question. So what if you do if you get on set and the child decides that they are just not enjoying the experience? And I think she's really looking for contractually what happens.
I'm sure that Claire's gone, but
it's all right. I'm here.
Okay, so if I misquote something, Alistair will help me out. As I understand it, once you're contractually obligated, you have to fulfill the contract. I would say, as a parent, I'd figure out as quickly as possible why the child doesn't like the experience and try to fix that and continue the day. Claire's back. She might have something more to say to that.
Hello, Claire.
Sorry, that was ugly. Yes, I crashed.
So Claire, what we're talking about right now is, so Christina was talking about, ensuring that your child is comfortable on set and having tells and stuff. But Nancy then asked, what do you do if your child is on set and decides that the experience is just not going well? So I think this is really the contractually, what are the obligations here?
When you have, for an adult performer, when you've signed a contract, there are good good jobs and less great jobs. And, there are some jobs where you grit your teeth and you get through it. For any of us as parents, like the prospect of putting your child through something which is perhaps not their 100% most glorious experience ever day is horrible, because we want to protect them and get them out of that situation. What's really important is, just because you are there as their advocate, you're there as the grown-up. What can you do? What are the powers that you have to protect them and help them through it? So first of all, the minors section in our agreement starts off with a bit of a preamble language, which is essentially first do no harm. So that's where we're going to start. It's like, okay, you've got opportunities to have a quiet chat with your child. The rest breaks that are mandated both in our agreement and in the Ontario legislation are that they get, so depending on the age, and we talked a little bit about that originally, but so they have you have an opportunity to have a quieter side. If they're doing the tell, then every production is required to have a minors coordinator, who should be someone that introduces themselves to you at the start of the day. So you've got a point person on any set. Go to that person and say, I know my kid, I need a minute. As soon as they call cut, can I get them off? I just need to have a quick word, make sure they're okay. And the production crew are human too. And while they may be there with the job of they've got their shot list for the day, they've got to get the scenes done, but they're still human. And having that conversation is a really great starting point. Say that, and then what is the problem? Is it something that is it insurmountable, or is it something that you can address? Like, is it just that they need a pee break, or or a drink of water, or do they just need 5 minutes with just somebody that they know and trust, and not in the company of adult strangers? So that you can kind of get them back on track and get back into it. There are a couple of hands up while I'm talking here.
Yeah, no, and I think Ed, I think your hand was up first there.
Sorry about that. I just unmuting and muting is such a task.
I know.
Driving here. Just had a question in regards to, is it for agents? Does ACTRA have any recommendation in regards to agents, or are they necessary?
Christina, do you want to start with that one? You just need to unmute there, Christina. Oh,
sorry, the space bar usually works. It is very important to have an agent. You can't do the soliciting yourself. Casting directors go through an agent that they trust. An agent, speaking from my experience, I've had great agents over the years. Sometimes I've outgrown some, sometimes one retired. But you want one that's a good negotiator. And you want them to know the IPA, that's the Independent Producers Agreement that ACTRA put out, so that they can negotiate for you. I don't know what kind of work you can get without an agent, except it would be non-union and it would probably pay very little. An agent is there, they understand contracts, they get to know you, and any good agent that's representing a minor will always interview the minor alone to make sure that they understand and want to do this. And then they interview the parents alone, and then they interview them together, because it's a relationship, really, it's a trinity. It's between the parent, the agent, and the actor, or minor in this case. And yes, I believe you should have, there are a lot of agents out there that are scams. So that's why, now that you've gotten to know me, you can contact me at my email at any time. I still do it. I teach at Humber College as well in film and television. And I'm always vetting out the agents that the students come, because they'll, sometimes it's very hard to get a good agent, because sometimes their roster is full. And I say that's a good agent, because if they say to you, well, you're very much like another child on my roster, so I can't represent you, that's a good agent. You don't want an agent with children that look like your child or are the same age, right? But
Right.
there are some scams out there, and so I always welcome a phone call or an email, and I will do due diligence for you and say, I know they want your kid and they're promising the moon, the stars, and the sun, but they're not legit.
Who's the first name of this person?
Yeah. And
Hi.
sorry, Ed, do you have a follow-up to that?
Yeah, just another quick follow-up. Like I've worked with various agreements and all that stuff, and just wondering for the child actors, since it's a different ball game that we're playing here in terms of the rules, how does it apply for remuneration when you go on set and you're there for like only 45 minutes? Do you get paid 45 minutes, or do they get paid 45 minutes based on whatever the hourly session is? Or
Claire, yeah, Claire can answer this one.
Okay, so it depends on the type of job it is. So in our agreement, there are minimum call times. So for the on-camera days, the minimum is an 8-hour day. There is language in our agreement that for minors, if they minors who are under the age of 12, if they work less than 4 hours, they can be paid the on-camera principal or actor rate at 50%. So if they only do a half day, then they get paid for a half day. But you would have to be booked for that half day for that to be the case. For off-camera work, like if you were doing voicing on an animation, or then there is a 4-hour minimum call with the minimum session rate attached to that.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Excellent.
I was just going to, I mentioned, following on from Christina's stuff, I put the ACTRA Toronto agents directory up in the chat. So for those of you who are kind of new to the prospect of finding an agent, there's an industry organization called TAMAC.
You missed all of this while you were away. I missed
all the good stuff. All right then.
Yeah, so that stuff is already in the chat, and we're also going to provide the links to everyone that attended today once we're all done as well. We'll send them all in an email so that they're all in one place. Arlene, you were next up there, please.
Hi, thanks again. So I have, I guess, like a two-part question. So my first question was around training. You touched on that really early on. And for children who are really interested in making the leap, I've heard of a lot of the good news stories of people who just kind of fell in their laps. But I'm also hearing that there are some agents out there who are really encouraging people to do training because they feel that kids without training really are going to have a hard time getting into the business. So I really want to understand, how do you identify what is good training and what is a good part, or when do you start doing the training? And then the second part to my question is around a resume. How does a child who doesn't have training or any experience create a resume to even begin this journey? So hopefully you can answer those for me.
She might be a little biased, but Christina is one of those acting coaches, so she's going to tell you exactly.
Yeah, I coach and I teach from the youngest has been 7 up to 60. I think it's really important for them to have training if it's in the budget of the parents. I mean, you send your kid to ballet, or they're learning an art form, and I'm very passionate about that. I always make it as fun as I can, but I always say to my students, knowledge is power. So I'm going to treat this exactly like it would be in the room. And I've had students who are amazing on camera, but and even, adult students that are amazing on camera, but I only encourage them when they know that they can do what they do in front of me in the classroom, in the safety of the classroom, in front of strangers. Because it changes. So I think the more that they train and the more they do acting in front of television and camera, the more confident they get. Because it really is that confidence. They have to walk in the room, and the producer and director have to know this kid knows what they're doing, and isn't afraid, and isn't going to, like we talked earlier, on the day drop out. Alistair said something really interesting that I really wanted to repeat. It is a business, and, I tell parents, they go, well, what if, should my kid get an agent? Are they ever going to, be good enough? And I say, they'll know, and you'll know when they're ready. but they're learning an art form. And, you know, you might take violin for 16 years and never make it into a orchestra, but you still have a skill. And I think that, yes, I think training is really great. And I think you have to do your due diligence like you're doing now to find the right trainer for your child. Are they more comfortable with a male teacher? Are they more comfortable with a female teacher? Are they more comfortable, you know, one-on-one? Do they want to have private coaching? I have to say that the best experience that I have and continue to have, and why I love teaching, is to see a kid come in crying, clinging onto their parents, saying, I don't want to do this. And then after 3 weeks, be the best in the class and can't wait to get to acting class. I love seeing that penny drop when they get it and they love it. Those are the ones that I encourage. Others, you know, do it because they're very shy and their parents want them to come out of that. And they do, they develop that. So not all of the students that I have go on to be performers, but they definitely benefit from learning this art form.
Yeah, I think Christina made a really great point, right? You know, you can be a naturally talented baseball player, but until you actually, you know, without practice, you're not going to either remain great or you're not going to get better. I think the big thing to note is training for adults versus training for children. It's very different. It's a very different method that is done. And, you know, really you're looking for someone who focuses on this sort of stuff. You know, it's got to be fun, right? First and foremost, it's got to be fun.
Yeah, and I always encourage them to just be themselves, because that's the style that the industry likes right now. They want a naturalness. They don't want big schmacking like you know, there's a style, and it's important to train with someone, I believe, that's in the industry that knows what is current, because the styles change all the time. And so I would look for somebody that your child can build a trust with. And because, you know, acting it's a vulnerability. I have one rule: they can never say they're sorry, and they have to be willing to make be silly and make fools of themselves. It's the one class I encourage them to fail, because that's where they learn. Go ahead, Claire.
And I was just going to add as well that you know, nobody expects you know, a 9 or a 10-year-old to have a resume that, you know, shows they did, you know, 4 years at RADA or something like that. You know, like their resume includes the things that are intrinsically them, like, you know, do they play on their soccer team? You know, have they taken part in their school plays? You know, it's their experience, because you know, the style of child actors now is not like Shirley Temple was in the 30s. It's not, you're not being all, ooh, you know, it's, you know, like, you know, it's much more naturalistic. And, you know, oftentimes, you know, we hear from casting directors, like, I just want a real kid. Like, you know, I want them to be authentic. So, well, what's authentic? We're all authentic, you know, except possibly me. But
Claire, I was going to add, my son's first resume at 6 basically just said, just basically said what he's into, what kind of music he liked, what sports he played. That's all, just to give them an idea. I mean, when my graduates from Humber, after a 2-year diploma program, graduate, I teach a business of acting class there. And part of that is building their resume. They have very little on it. And they freak out. And I always remind them, well, why would you? You're just starting. You know, you're not going to have a resume that's, you know, 3 pages long. Yeah. I can help anybody though, if you want to. I can send you some samples.
Does that help, Arlene?
It does. And thank you for putting that into perspective, because I was kind of overwhelmed thinking, what do I think of that these kids do today or what they've done? So this helps. So thank you very much. And I would like to see the templates, Christina, if you've got those as well. Thank you.
Excellent. Trina, you've had your hand up. Thank you for your patience.
Hi. I just wanted to circle back to the agents. So we live out of town of Toronto. Ideally, does it matter, or is there, I guess what I'm looking for, local, like where Let me think.
Let me, so what we can tell you is, are you east, north, south,
Well,
or
we're in
west?
London.
Okay.
We're in London, so it's a smaller city. It's growing, but I know all the acting and TV shows are in Toronto. So is it ideally better to have an agent where the action is happening, or would it ideally be beneficial to have an agent that's local, or does even locality play a factor in the
Well,
agent?
I mean, sure, it certainly does, right? Access is key. But I mean, what I think you're really lucky with now is there is so much filming happening west of Toronto now, so much. You know, Hamilton has become a hub. A brand new studio has just opened in Hamilton. There is so much filming going on there. London itself is looking to put in a small studio. They're trying to attract studio work to come to London because they believe that they can play any town America, right? Which is really what the American studios are always looking for. So it's not so much where the agent is located, but is what does the agent have access to, and are they the right fit for you, right? I think that again really is the key. And remember, this is a business where they are working for you, right? You are paying, you pay these individuals to do a job for you, and that is to put your child forward for the correct work opportunities. And so really, if the correct work opportunity happens to be in North Bay, but they believe that your child is the right person, you need to make the decision as to whether or not you are willing to do the work in North Bay or go to Newfoundland because they happen to be filming in Newfoundland, right? These are all sorts of those things that you need to consider and be very clear with your agent about, what travel are you willing to do? What days of the week are you able to work? And that's why we then also have all the tutoring requirements within our collective agreement, so that, because we know that kids are going to miss school because of this. This year and last year were a bit of a weird anomaly with the whole virtual learning and hybrid models and things like that. So everything was a bit kind of chaotic at times with that. But really, that's why we've got those things in. It's to help educate you as well as to decide how much school can my child miss, because that's a big factor. Right. That's a very big factor. Christina talked about it off the top, that what we tend to see is children that do this, that are in this for the long haul, are very, very smart kids. Right. And that's because they have to be able to learn by themselves, and they have to be able to learn in a very different setting than a normal structured classroom. So these are all those things that you as an adult may not need to consider about your work, but you do need to consider for their work. So that was a very long answer to say it doesn't really matter where the agent is, but making sure that they have access to the type of work that you want to do, that's the important stuff. Claire.
Okay.
I was just going to add, I mean, the interweb is a wonderful thing as well, because you can do your research on who the agent is, because they will often put up on their Facebook page or on their website, oh, congratulations to my client, Kimmy, who just got a starring role on such and such. And you can see where they're putting their clients. You can work out, if you IMDb that show, if that was a union show or a non-union show, because some agents work primarily in the non-union world. And that's why the list on our directory, the TAMAC agents work almost exclusively in the union world, which is why, from our perspective, we ally ourselves with TAMAC. But the other thing to factor as well, there are all kinds of nuances in the rules that you would have to consider and have that conversation with your agent. So if you, for example, were looking at an agent who was local to London and who was mostly looking at local jobs for you, there are things like, if your child is called for an audition or called for a fitting on a school day, they can't miss school for those things, because so the producer has to schedule those things outside of school hours, but before 8 p.m. on a school night. So there's like a 4 to 8 window that you've got. So again, like in your discussions, if you're talking with an agent in Toronto and you're coming from London, then you have to be upfront and say, well, it's going to take me this long to get to Toronto. So if there's an opportunity for an audition, it can't be before this time, and I got to be out at this time. And then if you do have a job, that's sort of commutable, like in Toronto, your kids are a bit older, so there are turnaround times. The kids have to be given a 12-hour rest break. 12 and 13-year-olds, that's from set to set. So when they wrap out, at the end of the day from one day, and then before they start the next morning, they're supposed to have 12 hours. For kids who are 11 and younger, that 12-hour turnaround time is actually door to door. So, if you are on a set that's an hour's drive from your home, it's that hour's drive is not part of their 12 hours. It's when they get home, and then you can get them set up, get them into bed. And then before you leave in the morning to set off to work, that has to be your 12-hour turnaround. And production cannot violate that.
Does that make sense to everybody? Because that's a very, very key distinction. Set to set versus door to door. It's a very different thing. So just make sure that you're aware of that one, because that's a really big one. Thanks, Jamie. Thanks for the thumbs up. Excellent. Good, good. All right. Shall we continue along here, Christina? So we you started to talk about agents. This was in the how do I get started? You started to talk about agents, and you need to unmute there as well, Christina. And training. So we've kind of, we've talked a little bit about agents. We've talked a little bit about training. I think now it's, next steps.
We've kind of talked a bit about the laws and the work hours, that the access for parents, rest breaks, meal breaks. When do you need to call ACTRA is an important one, I think. Before booking, yes, this is important. You've got to ask your agent the timing of rehearsals, fittings. Now we have COVID test. I was on Murdoch 2 weeks ago, and I had to be tested every day that I was there, and fill out forms and have my temperature taken. I don't know how much longer that's going to happen, but it is part of our world right now. May has a question.
Yes, I was just, you guys were talking about the schooling and the set time and stuff, right? I have a question about, because Glee just finished filming Art Squad, and then sometimes production couldn't make up the 2 hours per day, so they can bank the hours. So let's say they bank. So the Art Squad production was really great because they would, let's say on their day off, they would just let them do their school. But in that case, I feel a little conflicted because he's off. I'd rather her go to the real school than having production make her do tutoring for the 4 hours that they missed or whatever. So in that case, how does that work?
Yeah, tutoring is an entirely exciting affair, and smart shows hire very good and specific tutors that look after the hours. But Claire has lots to say on tutoring. I know that for sure.
I know you were preaching to the choir with that one. That was yes, I know this situation. This comes up a lot. So when you agree to have your child work on a production, you're kind of agreeing to all the rules that come with that, because you are agreeing that your child is taken out of their regular school to work, which is, as we've said, because of the labor laws in Ontario, our industry has that special provision. But part of that deal is that the producer has to provide you with the education. So one of the things we're looking for right away, and it's a requirement in the agreement, but they should have their estimated tutoring times on the call sheet. So if you don't see that, okay, I'll back up a bit just in case we didn't cover this. Tutoring is required if your child has 5 days of work on a production or 2 days of work on that production within 1 week. So if they're only booked for 1 week, but they have 2 or more days, then the producer is required by law to provide tutoring. If it's just a 1-day job, then it's not a requirement. So when you know that tutoring is a requirement, you should already know that tutoring is a requirement, because the tutor should have contacted you to say, hey, can you get in touch with the school and make sure that you've got the work that your child is going to be missing? So that's what we'll go through in the tutoring session. So the tutor is trying to keep your child kind of pretty much on a par with what their friends back in their class are learning. So if you don't see the tutoring times blocked out on the call sheet anywhere, then that's a red flag already. So first of all, I would go to the AD and go, I don't see, like I see that the tutor's on the call sheet on the crew grid, but I don't know what the times are. Can you just let me know so I can kind of, so I'm prepped. So, and then, and if they dismiss that, then, the question is when to call ACTRA. That's when to call ACTRA. So when you have a situation when you've got time to make up, it's part of your obligation, basically, as a parent, that the producer is allowed to fulfill their obligation in getting your child tutored and caught up.
Can we as a parent waive that? Like, I mean, like, I get it, but like my kid is a social person. So she likes to go to school, like a real school, rather than miss the morning for the tutoring, for production to make up. To me, I don't really care. I just want my child to be happy and learning. You know what I mean? Like, to me, it's all about that. It's not about how much time or whatever the situation. I explained that to the tutor, and she was really nice. And she said that based on ACTRA's rule, if she goes to school for the day, it makes up 2 hours. So I'm like, oh, okay. So, but then if they miss 4 hours or they have to make up for 4 hours, then they still have to do another 2 hours of tutoring.
Oh, okay.
She's like, correct. I don't know.
So that's not actually correct, because if your child is going to school on a day, then that is their schooling for that day. It does not make up tutoring that the production failed to provide to them. So in a situation, let's say you had a production and your child has finished, but the producer still owes your child 4 hours of tutoring. They can arrange with you to book your child for a day of tutoring. But if they are pulling them out of school to do that, then they have to tutor for that day as well. They can do a maximum of 5 hours of tutoring in one day. So there's the 2 hours for the new day that they've pulled them out for, and making up 3. So they're not. So if they pull them out for one day and they owe 4 hours, they're not going to make it all up. They're going to have to.
Right.
So your point comes back to, and it's one that we tread very carefully around, because this impacts our obligations under Ontario labour legislation, but also the Education Act that we don't wish to run afoul of. So if a producer and a parent come to us and say, oh my gosh, I really want to just get my kid back into regular school, they're desperate to be back with their friends and doing their regular schooling. And I know my kids are desperate to be back in their regular school and not stuck at home with me. But then we have to have a look at what is in the best interests of the child. And so that may involve, getting the principal of the school involved, because I can't make a decision to, hey, this child didn't need tutoring, because I'm not going to run afoul of the various ministries. And, I would recommend that that's not a responsibility that you as a parent would want to take on either. But if you're, if your school principal is satisfied that it's in, that there is no obligation on the producer's part to make that up, and that your principal is willing to put that in writing in those particular circumstances, then we can consider that. But I'm not, I really would like us all to be, I mean, ideally, the production shouldn't get that far behind in the first place. That's the best thing. And that's
well, maybe, and because they could bank 4 hours, sometimes they know that the work is coming up, you know what I mean, and they want to bank the full 4 or 5 hours. You know what I'm saying?
So there's banking and owing. So banking is when they do it in advance, like they say, oh, we want to pull your kid out of school on this day, get a bunch of tutoring done because we're in a specific location when we shoot, and we want to get as much shooting time done as possible. And that again, in the agreement, it does say that it's, again, going back to the best interests of the minor, it's if the tutor and the parent agree that that's best for the child. So you can say no.
Okay. Oh, really? Okay, I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
perfect.
yeah.
Perfect.
and when you're and when it looks like they might be getting to a situation where they're owing and they're going to have to bring you back, then you can say, you need to get my kid into tutoring, because it's not going to be in their best interests to have to make this up afterwards. So it means being a bit heads up, and yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Christina off the top talked about, when are there times to say no? And you, as the parent of, you are the business rep for the child that is on set. And there are absolutely times to say no. That is a perfect example of them. I just want to make sure that everyone else who's on here kind of understood what we were talking about with the banking time and the owing time and tutoring, because it is for people that work in the industry who have done, lots of sets, it is still a very head scratching thing. In terms of tutoring, it's always best to ask questions. And if you get a chance, it's always good to talk to the business rep and make sure that we've got the logs as well, because ACTRA is required to have tutoring logs from production so that we can ensure that the production hasn't fallen behind and suddenly is now owing all of this time. And if we don't know, then there's, it's one of those, if we don't know about it, there's nothing we can do about it. So it's always good to have the conversations with the tutor and with the ACTRA business rep as well.
Last question.
Yeah,
It's related to tutoring too. So with ACTRA, is the tutoring rule the same across Canada, like different provinces, or are they different?
It's in the IPA, and that goes everywhere east of the Rockies. Have I got?
Okay.
Yes, east. That's
okay.
That's our side.
Just not British. Yeah, not British Columbia. Just not British Columbia.
Yeah, because of labor law, British Columbia has a slightly different agreement, but I think the tutoring rules are essentially the same.
Okay.
But the other thing I was going to say is, remember that the tutor is your ally as well in this, and you can have that conversation with them. It's like, I've asked the AD, to give them, to break them for their tutoring time, and they're not letting me. And let the tutor weigh in there, because it's their professional responsibility to have that happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you can stand behind the tutor and go, yeah, what she's saying.
Yeah, thank you. And and just while we're talking about tutoring, and thanks, May, those are really important questions, and truly they are the bane of a lot of people's existence on a set. One of the things that we want to make sure of is that parents understand that while they are required to keep their eyes on their children at all times, except when the child is being tutored. That is the one point where the child will leave your sight and go away, because it's like they're going to school, right? And you don't have to be there when they are in school. So that's also your one chance to actually get a break. That's your one chance to kind of take a moment for yourselves, because the rest of the time you're on duty and you are working, and you need to be vigilant at all times. And it can't be you sitting down on a couch somewhere while your child is on set with your phone in hand. You need to be in sight and sound of your child at all times. And that's not just an IPA requirement, that's the law, right? And that's the Protecting Child Performer Act. So we just want, we need to be very clear that the act itself is actually a law and is enforceable by the Ministry of Labor. And you don't want to end up with a fine as well as the producer. It wouldn't be a happy situation. So just remember that part. Sorry, Claire, back to you.
I was just going to add one more thing. I just talking about just because we've been referencing the banking and the owing and that sort of thing. I was remembering we had another show that Odd Squad is produced by Sinking Ship. They had another show, Androids, and I remember one of the leads on that. The parent did not like the production was trying to do 2 days with 5 hours of tutoring, and that was it for the week. And the parent dug their heels in and said, it's not good for them. We'd rather do the 2 hours a day and break it up through the week. They stuck their heels in. They got the tutor on side. The tutor said, yes, I agree. That's in the best interest of the child. And so there was a situation there where everybody worked together. Sorry, my dog is going mad about something upstairs. She's singing. But it was a situation where the tutor and the parent worked together to come up with what was in the best interest of the child, and they were able to use their combined power there to tell the production you can't schedule it that way. So they changed the entire production schedule to accommodate that.
Okay, Christina.
I just wanted to add something that Alistair mentioned, or maybe Claire did, or both. There is a business rep that ACTRA assigns to every production. And on the call sheet, usually the bottom left, you'll find their name.
Right.
Right?
Bottom right.
Bottom
Yep.
right. Right. Yes, right. Sorry. And east-west is crazy for me too, Claire. You'll find a number, and they're there to help you during business hours. And they can, if you have any complaints or any issues, you call them and they'll call the producer. So you don't have to feel like you're, that's the support system. And there is an after hours hotline as well. So for instance, if they say, we like to use this as an example, we were going to have the kid get out of the bunk bed and jump out of the bunk bed in the morning, but now we want him to be on the top bunk and jump. And your kid will, I can guarantee, say, I'll do it. Well, no, you've got to ask some questions. What are they going to land on? How many times are they going to have to do this jump? Are they going to be landing on concrete? Is there going to be a mat? So sometimes, the kids are asked to do things, and kids generally, that's why you're there to advocate for them. Kids will say yes to anything. Going into overtime, they'll say yes. And so you have to really kind of know the rules yourself and also understand that you can say no. No, I don't want my child jumping from that. What if he needs to take 27 takes and he's landing on a rug? So there are, oh, thanks for the support. He's putting everything up for you. And my email's up there too for people who want to see what a resume might look like and stuff like that, by the way, because we mentioned that. But anyway, yes, you have a rep and you have a 24-hour hotline. So ACTRA is there for you to step in if need be.
For those whose children are members who are members themselves, on the back of your membership card, there's the after hours hotline, so the Haven hotline. So, if you're taking your union card with you to set it, the number is there to call. And then, if it's, inevitably the questions like jump off the bunk bed into the shark infested waters whilst on fire will happen after 5 o'clock. But the hotline is answered by a live person, and those questions will then go to Alistair. Congratulations.
Yeah. One of the perks of the job. Yes, absolutely. What I wanted to do, Christina, is I wanted to circle back to a little bit before, during the timing of rehearsal. This is the before you book, that timing of rehearsal, the fittings, the COVID testing. So if we can start with rehearsals. Now that we're in summer, it's a little easier, but we should talk about, rehearsals during the school year.
I don't, since I haven't been on many shows where I got to rehearse very much. I know with kids they do.
Well, so let's actually, let me back that up a step. Let's talk auditions, because right now we're all doing this work from home audition and Zoom auditions. We do still, and Claire is desperately flipping pages. I can see it. She's flipping through the IPA. We do still have requirements when it comes to when minors can audition. And so maybe that's where we start. Claire, have you had a good swig? Can you talk to that one first?
Yes,
All
so
right.
just my bucket of tea, thank you. There's no Baileys
Excellent.
in that. There's in the minors section, it's like your auditions, interviews, individual voice and photographic tests, fittings, wardrobe tests, makeup tests, read-throughs, and photographic conferences for minors. And remember, this agreement was negotiated before we had COVID, so that's not in this one, but we kind of looped it in with that as well. But for minors, should take place only after school hours on school days and will end before 2000 hours, which is 8 p.m. on days before school. So they've got to kind of time it so that you're not pulling your kid out of school early to go to an audition or to a fitting or any of those things. I know I've had calls from parents saying, I can actually, like they want to do a fitting. They've told me it's just going to be 15 minutes, and I can pull them out of school, get them to the fitting, get them back to school within their lunch hour, if that's okay. And so there are those kind of like, anomaly situations where it's not after school, but it works. I said, so I ask a parent, does that work for you? Is your child happy to do that during her lunch hour instead of, sitting and having lunch and then, kicking the soccer ball for 20 minutes? So, with those kind of provisions, it's been allowed, but generally speaking, it's after school and before 8 p.m. on school nights.
Great. And so then let's talk about COVID tests. So one of the things, both as work time, and what do you do as a parent? Do you want to, and I'm asking the question, but I could probably answer it myself since I tend to have to deal with all things COVID. So, all right, I'll answer the question myself. So in terms of COVID tests are work time. There's no ifs, no ands, no buts about it. Any time required to do COVID testing is considered work time, and all of the regular work rules apply, except for how long you get paid for. So for a COVID test, the minimum call is a 2-hour call, because we do have a 2-hour provision when not appearing in front of a camera. So that's just important to realize, is that for a COVID test, you can just do a 2-hour call. Now, if you have to travel outside of the 40-kilometer zone, and we can talk about that in a second, but if you have to travel and there's travel time involved, and then the COVID test and travel time back, which is more than 2 hours, then it would be more than a minimum 2-hour call. Remember, that 2-hour call would just be the minimum for a COVID test. So that's paid work time for the minor. Now, for the parent who has to go to set, you will also have to have a COVID test. That is just, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. Unfortunately, you're not going to get paid for it. We do have a couple of producers who have taken it upon themselves to pay for it, but there is no requirement under the IPA for a guardian or a parent to be paid for a COVID test. So just know you're going to have to do it, but you're not going to get compensated for it. Hopefully, as we see more vaccinations and as we see better numbers in the province, we will start to see a decline. But my guess is we're not going to see any sort of decline in COVID testing until at least the winter. It is, I think everyone is a little fearful of what's going to happen in the fall once everyone goes back to school, once nobody can sit on patios anymore. I think there is a concern amongst the epidemiological community about what that potential fourth thing is going to look like. So we just need to be mindful of that. And we're also mindful of the fact that we shoot a lot of service productions. Now, service productions means that the main producer is an American parent company. Could be CBS, could be Netflix, could be Amazon, something like that. And they are also working with a set of rules that are crafted by ACTRA, which is the equivalent to ACTRA down in the States. And because America was hit so hard, they have some very incredibly stringent requirements when it comes to testing, which is great. But that also means that until they start to see a turnaround, those rules are going to be in place for any shows that involve SAG performers up here. So we will get caught in that net. So just to be aware of that. But again, COVID tests are work, they're paid time, and you as the parent who has to be on set will also have to follow all the COVID protocols, including testing, including the PPE, the mask wearing, the potential face shields, all of that sort of stuff, the 6-foot physical distancing. And it has also very much changed how food is served on set, of course. That's one of the biggest changes that we've also seen. So just know that it's still with us for a little bit, and hopefully we will see some changes, but it's probably going to be winter. So I think if we can now move on to the during work. Claire, we talked a little bit about the parental access and what that means, but we also know that there are going to be some shooting areas where a parent isn't going to be able to be in actual physical distance of their child. So what do we do in that particular case?
Yeah, so that happens, especially if your child is in kind of like a tight, if they're supposed to be like, in a classroom is what I'm thinking of, like the set was a classroom and they couldn't have, a load of parents, standing along the edge of the classroom, going, yeah. So in those situations, we've discussed with productions about getting monitors set up. They usually have like like a wireless feed. So either you're able to access that through your phone, or they can set up a screen in the area where you are. So hopefully you're just on the other side of a door, because obviously for your check-ins with your child, you don't want to be like, having to spend, if you've got 45 minutes between their breaks, you don't want to spend 22 and a half minutes going back to holding and then 22 and a half minutes going back to set out of that. So hopefully you're really close by, but you're able to view as much as you can on a screen, which is again why Christina's suggestion about having some kind of Carol Burnett tell for that would be really useful. But also when you do get the breaks, when you've gone, okay, my whatever it is, half an hour, 45 minutes is up, I'm just going to the minors coordinator should be nearby. You say, I just want to go in and have a quick word, so I can pull them out for their break, and then you have an opportunity to say, are you okay? So the monitor access that you have should also enable you to hear what's going on, because obviously it's all very well you're being able to view on a monitor, but if you suddenly see your child leaping head first off the top bunk of a bunk bed, but you didn't hear what was being said to them, then as their legal representative on the set, it's like, how on earth could you have my child agree to that when they are 7 years old or whatever? It's like, I'm the grown-up, I needed to agree to that.
Yes. So I think that the key there is that you're not just hearing when cameras are rolling, you are hearing you're hearing all the instructions, you're hearing everything that is going on with your child in that space, which is keenly important, which actually now would actually be a great time. Angelica, I'm gonna get you to unmute, because Angelica, as an Oslo, we send Oslos to sets, and the staff determine when an Oslo is going to be required on set. And we try to send them anytime that there is going to be something to do with minors on a set, something to do with any sort of intimacy on a set, large background days on a set. So Angelica, if you want to talk just a little bit about kind of how you liaise with parents when you are on set as an Oslo, that would be great.
Well, the first thing that I do, no matter how large the amount of performers are, I will take individually the parent as well as the child and the minor. And I'll talk to both of you just to make sure, one, that you understand exactly what's being shot in the day. So here's the call sheet, and going through exactly what's being shot, if you're aware of the actions and where it is, it could be multiple locations. That's one thing. Also, as well, in terms of talking about the schedule of the day. So when they were brought in, and when they're wrapping, and when their breaks are. And I will tell you, definitely speaking what everyone's already echoed, a lot of the minors there are so smart. I will always ask, and a lot of them will say, I know my breaks. So for every hour, I have this much time on camera, I have this break. I have my tutoring at this hour to this hour. And when I get my meal break is this. They know everything, and it is phenomenal. And it makes me so happy, because they are aware, because at some point, I mean, speaking as a parent of a minor who eventually didn't need me anymore, when she went and all of a sudden now is 19, I don't have to go with her anymore. I don't have to be there, but there is still that transition of being able to support, and being able to support is being aware of, what's being asked. So I will also talk to parents on set as to if they have any concerns. If they've been there multiple days, there may be something that I had a general question about. Also in terms of, for some parents, they're looking at these different contracts. What was I supposed to sign? And what should I note? And all of this is important, because at the end of the day, we want to make sure that, all the I's are dotted, all the T's are crossed, and that you feel safe and supported. So when I go for the gamut of everything. And also too, making sure that going back to the wireless feed, that if you are given it, that you're able to access it, or, where the monitor is, or who the child coordinator is, because there could be multiple depending on how many children are there that day. So making sure that I can help you have the best day that you can have on set, and also making sure that all our minors performers will enjoy this and stay in the business, because they're our next Oscar winners as far as I'm concerned. So basically that's what I do. And again, it's me being a member, me being a fellow performer. As I said earlier, my whole family's in this, and watching my daughter enjoy it. And I will say something. There is something about training. I always get asked this. So with training, the reason that's why it's important is because a lot of times parents will say, okay, so we're here, but I'm self-taping for something else. And then, the minute you say self-taping, it's like everybody just freezes, which is why, stuff like that is important, because you want to help your child get the best that they can out of this experience. Like I said, they're the future Oscar winners. So making sure that, they have all of what they need. I mean, one day they could be all about the dance. That was my daughter. Then all about the singing. Then all about the acting. Hey, it's great to be, what they call those is triple threat, but I just want you to enjoy and perform and be thoroughly, thoroughly happy with this. I mean, yes, it is a business, and there is money involved, but the most important thing is that they enjoy. So, getting the training, getting the support, always asking questions. A question is never a bad thing. It's really getting that peace of mind, and that peace of mind is priceless, and making sure that, you have all of that. So whenever you see me on set, usually I'll come with a visor that has Oslo printed on it, only because I figure that's the best way to identify myself, because I want you to know I'm a person that you can ask. And I will always do my best to get you the help on set, but also I'll point you out to our fantastic departments back at the office, our fantastic advocate, because they are there to want to make sure that you have all the tools that you need to succeed in this business. So in a long story, that's what I do. Thanks, Alistair.
No, that was great. That was really great. Thank you. And there's no segue possible here. So we're just going to segue and go, we're going to talk money. Because that's the other important part of this business, right? We are all involved in this because we kind of love it and we want to do this, but we also need to ensure that we are properly remunerated for this, and what is involved with all of that. So Christina, I think let's start with you as the stage parent, and kind of how you dealt with money, and then we can talk about what provisions are in place to secure monies for children. So let's start with the art of the deal and money.
Absolutely. I have a terrific entertainment accountant. And when my son started working, he said to me, and very sternly, that is his money. It is not your money. So I right away put his money in a savings account. Anytime it got over $5,000, I invested it in a mutual fund. I used his money only on a couple of things. When he had to get new pictures, he paid for that. There was only one time on set we both could not be there because my husband is an actor as well, and we were both on another set, so we had to hire a chaperone. So we paid them. That came out of his money. Driving him to his auditions, we did not charge him use of the car, anything like that. We only used his money for things to do with the business. And I happened to be good with investing, so I always invested it for him, but kept that safety net of $5,000 in case he needed it for whatever. The only time that I used his money was he was taking piano lessons at the conservatory, as well as many other things. And as two actor parents, as you know, it's feast or famine. We could not afford his piano lessons. And that's when my accountant said, get him to pay for it. And I went, you told me that I could never touch his money for, and he said, well, ask him. He was 11. And I said, do you want to continue with piano? And he said, yes. And I said, well, we can't afford to pay it. Can we use your money? And he said, yes. So he also started his first, at 6, he started doing his income tax. Because my accountant very wisely said, you want to establish an RRSP for him. Now, through ACTRA, that's one of the wonderful benefits of ACTRA, is we have an RRSP established when you start working. And the producers put, correct me if I'm wrong, 3% of your earnings?
No, you put 3%.
We put 3%, but they
they contribute 5.
7.
7, sorry, 7. 5 is
Yeah.
insurance. Yeah, so the producer contributes 7, you contribute 3, so there's 10% going towards on each
Yeah.
paycheck.
Yeah.
So
Can I just yeah, so and you may have kids who are at different stages in their membership, some full, some apprentice. So full members have that 12% that the producer contributes. So 10% based on their total contracted fee is going into their RSP. 5% is going into their benefits plan for health benefits, dental and stuff.
And I have to tell you, when he went to the dentist and was covered under us as a dependent and also had his own coverage at 11, the dentist was pretty impressed. The money, you have to also understand that when they're a full member of ACTRA, 25% of their payment goes into a trust fund that they get at 18, and that is theirs. That's another reminder. It's not the parents'. You do have to start being a little bit savvy with accounting because they will they're making money. They have to file a tax return and they have deductions if they get their haircut, if they have to buy special clothes for an audition, if they have training, coaching, if they get pictures and spend money with a professional photographer. These things are tax deductible for them. Yes, Claire.
If they spend that money, like that's got to come out of their account.
Yes, you can't claim anything of theirs. They can claim against their income anything that they spent to help them run their business, which is their acting business. So that's pictures and sub clothes and haircuts. There's lots more. As they make more money and get older, if they have their own place, we deduct a certain amount of our home as our office because we work from here, things like that. If you have to buy a special green screen, if you use their money, they can deduct it. If you buy it for them, you can't deduct it. You're not an actor unless you are buying it for yourself and letting them use it. But any kind of equipment that you buy, those are things that fall under that.
And so one of the things that was sent to me in the chat was about accountants who actually know this world, and it was sent privately, so you won't see it, Christina. But specifically, it's not just any accountant. It really isn't. It needs to be someone who's familiar with the entertainment industry because the write-offs that are available to independent contractors in the entertainment industry are wildly different than they are in the regular business world. And so to Christina's point, she started this by saying, look, I have a good entertainment tax accountant, and that's important. We can't endorse any one individual. But we do have a few that we are very familiar with who attend ACTRA conferences, who speak at ACTRA member conferences, who, if you happen to look at any of the town halls that we posted during CERB, during when CERB first started up, you will see some tax accountants on there who are well familiar with this business. So there are a few that we know of, but there are lots out there. And, asking people like Christina, who do you use, is one of the best ways. Asking other parents on set, who do you use? Talk to the other performers as well, not just the parents, right? It's important.
It's very complicated because you're paying your dues, by the way, are tax deduction, right? The commission you pay for your agent, but there's HST as well at a certain point. When you start making a certain amount of money, you're going to want an HST number, and that becomes a whole nother craziness. All I recommend is keep your receipts on anything, and even ones that you're not sure. Keep your receipts and get a good accountant because it's so complicated with all the stuff that we can claim.
Yeah. So Trina, you've got a question there. Trina.
So Wasea's doing her first thing with Ukulele U, and it's just for the summer. And we're just kind of like experimenting this opportunity. We haven't looked beyond Ukulele U yet. I think she's great. And I think if as a parent to judge that she'll probably like it and want to continue and do more stuff. But that being said, if we're just focusing on ukulele U, am I going to need an accountant for this small moment of time we have, or is an accountant more for like when you're fully into it?
That's a really, really good question. And you'll kind of know she's making an income. She's going to have to fill out a tax form, and that's in your best interest because it's the way it has to be. But also, she can start building up the RSP possibilities by doing that. It wouldn't be a very difficult thing for you could go to some H&R Block for in the beginning, but as if she does continue in the business and starts making significant money, you're going to want to know what you can deduct so that she's not paying huge taxes on it. In the beginning, with my son's career, if I talk about his, he wasn't making enough to pay any taxes. We mainly wanted him to just bank up the RSP allotments that he could put in if he needed to or wanted to. But when you start getting, making a significant amount of money, you are going to want to have a trusted accountant to help you because you don't want to pay tax on it that you don't need to.
Yeah. So to that, Trina, just in this particular one, if the minor doesn't hit the basic, I'm trying to remember the basic personal credit amount. So the government essentially says you can earn up to X amount of dollars without having to pay taxes. And I think right now, I want to say it's around $11,000. So you can make up to around $11,000 in a calendar year without having to pay tax. So if you're just doing one show, you may earn somewhere between probably $2,000 and $5,000 on that particular show. Again, completely depends on how many days you're shooting, of course, right? And what category of work you're doing. But you should, if this is it for 2021, then you should be okay, and you're really not going to need a tax accountant. But what does come into play will be the Minors Trust Fund. So the Protecting Child Performer Act put in place that any child that earns, and Claire, I'm going to get this wrong, so I'm going to just kick it to you at this point.
Okay, yeah. So in our agreement, the requirement for Minors Trust is once a minor has $5,000 lifetime earnings. And in the Protecting Child Performers Act, which is the law, it says if your child's a member of a union, then it's once they've earned 5,000. If your child is not a member of a union, then the producer has to start making those deductions and contributions once their earnings reach $2,000 lifetime. So that's important. We aren't Jimmy Hoffa. We aren't making anyone join the union, although obviously for those of you whose children have got a contracted role, it's an option that's available to you. But I totally hear what you're saying, Trina, about figuring out if she's enjoying it and wanting to go on and do it, because there are obviously costs associated with joining the membership and that kind of commitment. So if she is not joining the union, then the producer will have to start making that source deduction of the 25% and putting it into a trust fund at which will basically be with the Minors Trust. So just if for those of you whose children are not ACTRA members but who are working on ACTRA shows, the Minors Trust Fund applies to every ACTRA production, every child working on an ACTRA production, whether they are a member or not. So the trust fund administrator will set up a trust fund account once your child hits that threshold.
Yeah, and that's an important one, because again, because it's part of the law, because it's part of the regulations in the law, the last thing you want to do is run afoul of the CRA, right? You as a parent do not want to run afoul of the CRA because you weren't putting money into the trust fund for your child. That's all the things that you're reading in the newspapers about and online about Britney Spears, all the things that you may have heard about Drew Barrymore when she emancipated herself from her parents back in the day, is all to do with this, right? So it's all about money and how that money is spent. So that's a really good one.
Yeah.
Trina, you have a follow-up there. Go for it.
Yeah, so she's gonna be, I think, enough to be a union member in like, I don't know, 3 weeks or something. So we're gonna pay, we're gonna become a member. I don't see an issue with that. So that will take care of the minor trust fund and stuff. But the other question I have, she's an Indigenous actor. Do you know if there's any alternatives to like taxes and deductions, or is that
And
where I would
this is exactly
see the
where you would
accountant?
reach out to an accountant. That's exactly,
Oh.
yes, exactly. Because
Okay.
there will be special considerations there that
Yeah.
that a professional CPA would actually be able to assist you with. Yeah, 100%. That would be worth it to you completely. Arlene, you asked a really good question there. How will you know that this is being done? So you're talking about in regards to that it is being put into the miners trust. Is that what you're? Yeah. So
Yeah, correct.
yeah. So Angelica, do you want to take this one on as the mother of someone who's been through this?
So it was really fun when she turned 18. And I will say the one thing that you should get familiar with is our AFBS friends, but also, and I know this seems almost like it's already been done, but always keep your email, your address, your phone number, like everything always up to date at ACTRA. And the reason being is because there is also something that as a member, you have access to see as well, which is our system, ACTRA. It's a portal, and you will see all your information. It'll have your agent information. It'll have the things that you've worked on and how that's been paid out. So it'll show like any producers' contributions, et cetera. But I mean, it goes into one thing where knowing where everything is, knowing and being able to reconcile everything. Again, it goes back to what I said earlier: peace of mind, making sure that you're able to track everything, have access to everything. So if I could put that forth, that was one thing that was really important, was making sure that all her information, her contact information, her agent information, and just being able to look at everything online ourselves, and making sure, because, as well, if things, let's say, for example, get mailed out, which they do on the commercial side, what if something got lost in the mail? Because it's the mail, and you're therefore able to keep track of everything, saying, well, I see it here, but and that's when you call ACTRA. And again, everyone at the office, the staff, they are amazing. I always say that they're a godsend, because anytime I have a question, I'm missing something, or I forgot something, or I didn't sign something, or this contract said this and I have questions, they know everything. It's like an encyclopedia, heightened times 100 whenever, calling in. So the business reps, all of them on both sides, commercial and as well on film, television, digital media, they are your friends. And again, also, Christina, she's an invaluable resource. So hopefully that kind of helps you, and hopefully that answered part of your question, Arlene. If you don't have access to System ACTRA, please do. And again, that's calling into the office, because they'll make sure to hook you up.
Yeah, so one of the things, again, because you are the business end of your parents of your child's work here, right? As the parent, that you need to be aware of is not every production is not going to know how much you have already made towards, if you have met your $5,000 yet, towards starting to go into the child's the minor's trust. So you need to be on top of that as well, so that when you do your startup paperwork, that you are indicating, okay, we're at the threshold now. Please ensure that you are deducting for the minor's trust. They can check with us, even if you don't know, we can assist with that, but it is not an automatic, or sometimes it may be an automatic, and the accountant may just automatically start deducting 25%, even if you haven't hit that threshold. So you need to be able to, that what's going on there. I think Claire had her hand up, and then Christina had her hand up.
I was going to say, we can connect you. We should put Patricia's email up here as well.
Sure. Yep, I can do that.
Yeah, so the administrator for the Miners Trust at ACTRA is Patricia Lancer. So that's one thing. But like, if you think your children are close, then you can register with her. The other thing is, certainly the payroll companies, like the big payroll companies, if your children are working a lot on shows that do their payroll through EP, or those who do their payroll through cast and crew, then they are tracking the total lifetime remuneration for that SIN number for your child. So they will likely, hit once they hit that threshold, they will start doing those deductions automatically. But If you think they're close, then email Patricia and say, you know, I think my kids have earned about X, and then she could just get them registered and put that in there.
So before we go to
thing-
Christina,
oh,
sorry, I just want to make sure, because Arlene kind of put her hand up. So I just want to make sure that we get to that question before we move on.
Yeah, no, and this is great. Thank you so very much. And I think what I'm looking for is, so there isn't necessarily reporting that I get, but it was that trigger, like what triggers them to know. And from what I'm hearing, they may not know. And it really ties into, I'm thinking about when the kids first started and I'm filling out even just the vouchers, and it says to put their SIN number or their birth date. And so if we're putting their birth date, that's not necessarily going to trigger this either. So quite possibly I do need to check in with Patricia, because I do think my kids are there, but I was just curious to know, because hearing this trust, I didn't know what that trigger is. If the kids are at that benchmark, like I can see, but I don't know if everyone else can see if they're at that benchmark. And what does that look like then moving forward when they're paid? Like, how do I know that it's been okay? So I think, Christina, that's where you're jumping in on this right now.
I am. I'm jumping.
Go on.
That's another reason to get a good agent, because your agent also keeps track of that. But I'm going to go back to your, so do we get a reporting? Yes, every year you should get the Miners Trust and the RRSP information from ACTRA, AFBS. Back to though, yes, your agent, if it's a good agent, they will know as well. But you can also see the agent, when you get your pay, I always get from my agent a breakdown of what I was paid, what was taken out for dues, what I was paid HST, then what they took out for their commission, and what HST I paid on their commission. You will see, like, for instance, my son and I have been in shows together and we make the same amount, but my check is way bigger than his because they're not taking that 25% out because I'm not a minor. So that's another, you can see that it's being taken out on the pay stub as well. That's another way you can follow it. 1 second.
No, absolutely. No, that is it.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Claire.
I was just going to, I mean, there are, when we were talking at the beginning, we were talking about finding an agent and choosing an agent. And I know we were talking largely about that process of getting a principal agent. So I think, Arlene, did you say your kids are doing background work at the moment?
Correct.
Yeah, so they don't, so the agent for background work won't necessarily have that same kind of boutique service that a principal agent will provide. So unfortunately, it does kind of throw it back onto you. And are your kids members yet?
So one has just become, he's an AABP, so I don't know if that even makes a difference, but one is, and the other two are close to the same.
Okay, so yeah, so it does make a difference, just because if they've been working on the white vouchers, and just for those who are newer, when you have a show that has background performers or extras, there is a certain requirement on any given day that the first X number, and it changes depending on the nature of the show, but so many of them have to be ACTRA members. And then once they've filled their ACTRA account, as we call it, because we're so imaginative, then they can go to what used to be called Cash BG, and it's called Cash BG because it used to be at the end of the night when everyone finished, there would be an assistant director standing there with a wad of cash going, that's for you, that's for you, that's for you. And it was literally cash in hand. Now it's a little bit more formalized, and you actually have the voucher, which is like a contract, so that you do have a record of their work history and that sort of thing, if you're keeping all of those vouchers. But if your kids have done some work that's been paid out through cast and crew, and some work that's been paid out through EP, and other work that's been paid directly by the production accountant, then we won't necessarily have a trigger that will have all of those records, because the Cash BG don't show up on the earnings reports that we receive at the office. So yeah, if you think your kids are going to be close to the 2000, then that would be the time to contact Patricia and say, this is where I think I am. Can we just register them? And then you're doing the right thing by them. And then you're getting them on the list so that that trust fund can start building for them when they're working. The other thing I will mention, as I said, we have the Miners Trust that's run by ACTRA. If you as a parent have a better setup in place, if you have an irrevocable trust fund that you think is earning better, if you have what's the word I'm looking, better growth, better earnings for your child's money than the Miners Trust Fund does, then you're allowed to have that. You just need to let the Miners Trust know this is my fund, and basically because we have a legal obligation, it has to be like it has to be irrevocable. You can't, put money in and then pull a Macaulay Culkin and pull it back out again. It wasn't Macaulay Culkin, it was his money. But yeah, if you have your own thing, sorry, Nancy, you had a question of 5K or 5K per contract.
Yep.
It's 5K lifetime.
Yeah, so I explained what lifetime actually means, right? So
Okay,
that's the entire work history of the miner from age 0 or 3 weeks in Christina's case up to the day before they turn 18. So all the monies that they make in that time is what is calculated. Once they hit $5,000, 7 or 25 cents of every dollar they make after 5,000 on a performer contract is sent to that Miners Trust Fund. And then on the day they turn 18, they now have access to that Miners Trust Fund, and hopefully they've got enough where they can buy a car or something exciting like that, because it's normally a pretty good little, if they've been busy performers, it's a nice little payday for them.
We'll buy you a car because you've driven them around for the past
That's right.
years.
Yeah. So in the chat, there's a message. So my daughter doesn't have an agent. Can she apply for ACTRA apprentice membership or full membership, or does she need to find an agent first? Claire, do you want to talk through how membership actually works?
Yeah, so the membership is based on having a qualifying credit. So if your daughter's been offered a contract, then they can join it. Yeah, that and they're having to purchase a work permit that is a qualifying credit, then they can join as a member. As we were talking, speaking about at the beginning, the agents are the ones who see the casting breakdowns from production. So if it's a legit production, they will be sending out here are all the roles that we need to fill. And that will be going to places like Casting Workbook that the agents can access. And then the agents can go, oh yeah, I have a client who can fill that one, that one, and that one. I'm going to put them forward for an audition. So if your daughter's interested in doing more work, then now would be the time to start researching agents and finding someone who's a good fit. Yeah, and then for example, the list of agents which we have on our website has agents who deal with principal work, agents who deal with just background work. There are some agents who specify that they specialize in working with young performers. So you'll see that on there. Some who specialize in voice work and that sort of thing, if that's more the sort of area that your children are interested in. So certainly go through the list and it's like, it's like shopping for a wedding dress, really, or shopping for a car. It's like you might want to try and get meetings with a few and see who it is, who's a fit. Absolutely. Because as Christina said, it's a relationship, and they are part of that process for building your career or your child's career. So it's got to be, you've got to be on the same wavelength with them.
So Nancy, you have another question. If you want to unmute and ask it, if that's going to be easier for you, go for it.
Hi, thanks for taking my question. So this is a question that my husband has, because he's more into like the investing of money and da. So what we want to do with some of Quinton's money is to save it for, when he goes to school, or, when he becomes 18 and maybe he wants to quit acting or whatever and go get a PhD or something like that. So how like what just generally are the rules around that, or is that something that we talk to an entertainment accountant about? Like yeah, so we're green on this, so I just want general information. Yeah,
so I think Christina might be in a good place to answer this one.
I always go by for myself, I've always said, if I can afford to lose it, I'll invest it, right? So I always kept, like I said, 5,000 ready to get at any time in case my son Eddie needed it. Beyond that, I locked it into some safe GICs that rolled over every year and made him quite a lot. I would talk to your actual, if you have a financial advisor or a good person at your bank, that's who I used. And I said, he's got, now he's up at 10 grand. I think we can afford to lock some money into something. What would you suggest? That's, I don't want to, and then you have that conversation of the type of risk you want to take. If your husband knows about that kind of thing, I mean, he probably already knows, and talk to the child if the child is able to understand that. But I just did it even when Eddie was very young, just because I knew that he didn't need to touch that money. So why leave it in a savings account that was making nothing for him? So I did something safe. I did GICs. One, I put a certain amount in a 3-year, and I put a little bit in a 5-year, which so that he couldn't get at them. And it just rolled over and rolled over and rolled over. So when he was going to university and he got his minors, he left that, and we still rolled it over until later when he needed it. Because I have always believed, get your money making money for you. I put it first in a Tangerine account because there's a higher interest, and then with them set up some GICs. But I think you talk to your husband about it, and whoever you use as a financial advisor, and see what your safety net is. Your safety net might be, we just need to keep $2,000 clear at all times in case he needs pictures or blah, 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 and lock it in somewhere so it can earn a little bit more dollar for your buck, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that the big thing that Christina talked about there, Nancy, is that the money belongs to the child, right? It belongs to the minor.
My next
right?
question. Yeah. So I'm just wondering, like, do we need to get his permission to do all of this?
Because no, because you are still making the decisions for the minor, right? The minor is actually not entitled to make any decisions for themselves, believe it or not, right? Yeah. But you still need to ensure that you have dotted the I's and crossed the T's, so that if the Drew Barrymore situation comes up, you are able to show that you were acting at all points in the best interest of your child.
And just add that, when I did ask my son for money towards his piano lessons, he was, we had the discussion. We talked about it. He was 11 at the time and a little bit more aware. I never told him that I invested his money. So when he did get to be 18 and he saw what I had done with his money, he was a pretty happy boy.
I hope he bought you something nice, Christina.
Yeah.
Something like when they are, because my son is 12, right? So, and he knows a little bit about investing and money managing. But is that something that you guys as parents recommend? Because, in it's like I didn't, like, this is the first time he's ever, I mean, I don't even make this much money that he's making in the short time that he's going to be doing this. So, like, do we talk to him?
Yes, I think that, I think this is personally, I'm going to get personal here. I think a child can handle truth, and, just sit them down and say, look, you're getting this work and you're getting some money, and we're protecting it for you. We want to assure you that we're putting it in a good place so that when you do need it, when you're an adult and know what you want to spend it on, it'll be there for you.
Okay. Yeah. Great. Thank you.
So, Christina, we have reached pumpkin time. Hey, does everybody know what that term actually means? Have you all heard that term? Is there anybody that isn't familiar with that pumpkin time term? It's just one of those weird terms that just continues to live on the set. But essentially, it is the time at which the child must be offset because they're going to turn into a pumpkin. And then ACTRA will rain down all sorts of fire and brimstone onto a producer if they don't get that child offset by pumpkin time, because again, breaking the law, right? Not just breaking us, but not just breaking the the IPA, but also breaking the law. So this is, big deal. Claire, you want to wrap this up? I know you want to bring this home.
That's a real trigger thing for me, Alistair. Yeah, just because we've had it come up a lot. So just be aware that, you have your responsibility as a parent to work within the law as well, but it's very often not you who is the party who is saying to the production, oh, please keep them on set for an extra half hour. It will be the other way around. And the great thing is, especially now that we have it in law, that the maximum number of hours that your child can do, depending on their age, is set by law, then it's a really great out for you as a parent when you are there as your child's legal advocate to say, I'm so sorry, but it's against the law. I really can't have my child work another 5 minutes. Yes.
Yeah, and that's great. So I think, I think hopefully if you take anything away from today, the big thing is if you have a question, call ACTRA, right? Call. We are here, email us. We are infinitely reachable, and we want to solve problems when they're only this big, before they become monumental problems, especially with minors, because it does involve breaking the law. And that runs a whole other set of problems that we don't want to have to deal with. We don't want to have a Ministry of Labor have to come to a set, because that set is going to grind to a halt. And that set is probably chugging at about $100,000 a day. And we don't want, we want to be able to fix that before it gets to that point. Sometimes that is inevitable, and we're not looking to stop that, but we are looking to ensure that we fix, you fix the cracks when it's a tiny leak before it becomes a raging flood. And that's what we want to be able to do. So really, I think what we want you to take away is, reach out, ask questions. We have a child advocate for a reason, right? The child advocate in Christina is there for this very reason. Someone who has lived this experience, and someone who can, if doesn't know the immediate response, knows how to find it and knows how to get you the answer. And that's really what we want. We want to get you the right answers, and we want to get them to you in a timely manner. So again, reach out to us, please tell others about this when you're on set. We're going to make this recording available. We're going to put it up on that child performers page. This recording will be there. Share it, right? Let others know about this, because there's really important information here that we're not sure everyone is getting. And thanks, Arlene. This really is about empowering. This really is about empowering the parent to act on the best interests of the child. So unless anyone has any last questions that they just want to get out there, and then we'll let Claire and Christina wrap this up. So any of those attending? No, I know we covered a lot of stuff today. I know lots of stuff. So Claire, over to you, and then we'll go to Christina.
Yeah, there's one thing that we usually talk about at these sessions, and it just kind of came to me, and I wanted to mention it, just especially as so there are a number of you who are quite new to this. We have the cheat sheet, or the age break. So when a child is a certain age, they can work for so long on set, they can work no overtime. When a child gets to 12, they can work longer between their rest breaks, and they can do a limited amount of overtime. There are kind of peaks and troughs in that, which can affect your child's work opportunities. So I know Christina has spoken about this with Eddie when he was 11, that being one of that's the top end of one age bracket. A 12-year-old can do a bit of overtime, and an 11-year-old cannot. So when he was 11, he was losing jobs to 12-year-olds who looked 11, because they were better for production because they could work them longer between breaks. They could have them doing overtime. And same thing happens when you get to 15. If production can get a 16-year-old who looks 15, then they're going to hire the 16-year-old rather than the 15-year-old. Again, 17-year-olds and 18-year-olds, that's kind of the next one. So bear in mind, as your child's career goes forward, as they hit those kind of age breaks, there will be times when they are a great performer, and it's nothing to do with them. It's just to do with the production wanting to squeeze every last drop of work out of that performer to get their money's worth. And that's often worth reminding your child about, again, because I think everyone here has talked about their kids being kind of except possibly for May, who had a 3-year-old, but who might not get it yet, or who may be way more savvy in their business sense than I am. But but there are sometimes when it's just not you, it's just what the production wants. And that's the other thing as well, as they go through that audition process. My next door neighbor is a long-standing ACTRA member, and she is the most energetic, incredible auditioner that I know, but always says, I've won when I've got in the room and I can show them my stuff. I might not get the job, but I've shown them my stuff and I've told them my story. And so sometimes I remind your young performers that doing the audition is great and it's really important and it gets them out there. And the casting directors have long memories and they will remember your kid if they've given a good audition that just wasn't right for that role. They weren't wrong. It's just that the producer wanted something different. And that's really important because we want them to love this.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Ms. Collins, any last thoughts, please?
Yes, I just want to add to that. Yeah, again, communicate with your child all the time. Are you having fun? Do you love this? And remind them that, going into the audition room is acting too. And you don't always book, but if you go back into that same audition room, you did something right. The casting director liked you. You might not have had the right color hair for that other part, or you might have been too tall. It's not in your control. So you've got to always remind them to not take it personally, to just have fun and do a great job in the room. And if they book the job, that's gravy.
Fantastic.
Anyway, thank you everybody for showing up. It really shows that you're doing due diligence for your children and you're advocating, and that makes me really happy.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you all once again. We will send out a follow-up email to this. All of the links that we talked about today will be in that email, as well as the link to this recording that please share. We would love it if you would. It makes things better for us. More information is power, and that's what we're looking to do here. So again, thank you all. I know it's only Thursday, but I hope you all have a good weekend. Thank you.
Thanks all.